I'd like to introduce Cam Walker. Cam is one of Australia's most experienced and respected environmental advocates. Friends of the Earth have recognised the significant human dimension implicit in the climate change issue, and it's to their credit that they've adopted a focus on this aspect of climate change. It's all yours, Cam.
Just bear with me while I fiddle with this, just slightly. Thank you. Thank you very much, Warwick and Polly. Is it Bruce from here? Barry, I apologise for this venue. Very nice to be here tonight. I guess I need to start with a little bit of a disclaimer. I've been lucky enough to have 5 weeks off work and I've been off on a big bushwalking adventure. This is the first time I've actually turned my brain on in 5 weeks, and I feel a little bit like I'm putting the gears into place, but it keeps popping out, so I hope I will be coherent to make some level of sense to you. What I'm going to say, I think, is going to be picked up to a large degree by the video, the Make Poverty History video, so I'm going to rip through it very, very quickly. But what I do want to do is talk about the climate justice dimensions of global warming and why I think it's the appropriate lens that we need to look through in framing our response to climate change. Clearly, it's not a new issue. Our organisation, I think, started working on, as it was called in those days, global warming. Now we tend to call it climate change in the mid-1980s. By 1992, it was sufficiently understood to be already happening that something like 100 countries gathered as part of the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro and signed into, began the process that brought about the creation of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which in turn led to the creation of the Kyoto Protocol. So that's 1992. Back as far as then, we knew this was real. We knew, in effect, it was a semi-trailer bearing down on us, but we chose as a society to ignore the reality that was coming. Now, within that, we've seen over those decades, or a decade and a half, a change in the way we look at it. First of all, it was seen as the preserve of scientists. Then it became seen as the preserve of environmentalists, and we're all very concerned about, the Great Barrier Reef or the Australian Alps or Antarctica or whatever it might have been. Now we're at the point where business is coming on board, and we have actually a federal government that at least accepts the reality of what's going on. The ALP are light years ahead of the Libs, the coalition, as they were under Howard, in that they accept it's real, but of course they're looking through an economic lens. Now, as Warwick kind of alluded to in the introduction, this is effectively a human rights issue. It always has been, and I'd suggest it always will be, and there's a huge danger as things become mainstream. As we know, they often lose their edge, they lose their political perspective, and that is what I would suggest is happening with climate change. So I guess the pitch I want to give is, if we understand it to be effectively a human rights issue, then that will influence the type of decisions we adopt both locally and also in the international realm. And until that actually gets traction and becomes the dominant way we look at these issues, then we're just going to see locally conflict, say over coal. We can see how that's kind of framing up at present. If we have an anti-coal approach without a just transition perspective, we're just going to go into effect the old class warfare we had over forests, middle-class grannies versus working-class loggers. And internationally, we just won't step up to the plate in terms of our responsibilities. Just to sketch out some of the understandings I have, that is, there's been a number of people that have done the carbon footprint of individual nations, of individual communities, of individual companies. To give you one idea, ExxonMobil, which is one of the world's largest oil companies on the planet, Friends of the Earth in England several years ago did a carbon footprint that looked at all the fossil fuels they had exploited, basically back to the time of the Industrial Revolution, and realised one company had contributed roughly 4.5 to 4.9% of the global warming that was historically created over the last 150 years. So individual players, both at the national level and at the individual level, have effectively created the problem of global warming. But as we're going to see in the video later on, other people, the majority world, have not actually created the problem, but are bearing the brunt of this. So our approach is, it's very clear to us Australians, as we know, are radical overproducers of greenhouse gases. We consume probably 18 times what would constitute a fair share of the global commons in terms of the carbon sinks, the oceans, oceans, the forests, the other natural ecosystems that offset and store carbon on an annual basis. So we're 18 times beyond what would be sustainable if we divided a fair share, a sustainable level of what the Earth can draw back in an average year, and shared that amongst all of us. Now, there's also a practical dimension here. I'm from Melbourne, I'm Australian, as a human being, I think I have certain rights, but I am no more important than a farmer in Bangladesh, a fishing person in Kiribati, a herder in sub-Saharan Africa. Until we frame the climate change conversation around an enshrining of human rights, we will continue to, the wheels will be spinning, but there's no traction. If you remember back to when Rudd got into power, within a couple of weeks they were off at Bali at the Kyoto, the COP negotiations in Bali late last year. Peter Garrett famously came out and said, yes, there is such a thing as a carbon debt, and Australia, as an over-emitter of greenhouse gases, needs to take action now, even if the large contemporary emitters, particularly China and India, don't come on board initially. He was beaten back into the box within a couple of minutes of having made that announcement, and subsequently came out and said, oh no, we wouldn't do anything unless they do. But that, I think, as an instance, captures the absolute nub of this whole conversation. There are two, as I see it, two parts to this world. We used to say the first world and the third world. Now probably we say the global north and the global south, or the minority world and the majority world. I prefer north and south. The north, which is Western Europe, United States, Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and to a degree South Korea, has contributed roughly 90% of the carbon and other greenhouse gases currently in the atmosphere and driving or forcing global warming. In the contemporary sense, that is what's happening, on this Sunday afternoon on the planet, we're still responsible for about 80%. Now, the Howards of the world, the deniers of the world say yes, but in gross terms, China and India are the main problem, and China, as we know, is now surpassing the United States as the world's worst gross emitter. But of course, that's a very convenient thing for rich people to say after the fact. So we would say what it has to come back down to is enshrining human rights, enshrining a fair share, and we use the notion of environmental space with equity. We have to accept the limits. We live on a planet of growing population, limited resources, and I think we'd all in this room agree we need to leave some space for other species. We need to continue the evolutionary journey of, southern Tassie's tall forests, or the Great Barrier Reef, or the Amazon basin, or wherever. We need to leave space for, if you like, nature, for the rest of the species on the planet. We need to only take what's going to be sustainable. We need to do that without stealing from the generations after us, and we need to do that in a way that is based on equity.